Hey, it's Tyler with TJX Survival. We are in the mountains. Gonna go test out some ultralight gear. Although you wouldn't know it if you looked at my kids. Keep going. That's as big as she is. That's just awesome. So we got it set up. This spot is like half the size that a tent needs to be, so it's on a little bit of a hill. But you can kind of tell. I'm gonna walk up this hill. Go grab that, Lou. What? So I'm gonna walk up this hill. It's kind of a hill right here. The actual tent spot's over there. I mean, this spot that I'm in would be perfect for just the little bug out and maybe the tarp without the vestibule, but just in case it rains, I want to lock all this down. But just kind of give you a quick overview of this. I got the one with the little bug out LBO with 3 stove jacks because it just gives me all these options. So like the little bug out is just the half teepee that's right there. And then the vestibule is a part in the middle. I'm sorry, the tarp, as I call it, is a part in the middle. And the vestibule is this. So let's say you just wanted to take the little bug out. Well, if you're just using that, then you would just put your let me see here. Yeah, you would just stick your stove right in the front of it. Now, if you do the little bug out and the vestibule, you would put your stove in. I'm sorry, the tarp part, the awning part, you would put your stove just right there. Okay, so you would go little bug out, awning, opening, stove, or you can take this whole center part out and squeeze these two together, and you'd go little bug out, vestibule, stove. So it gives you options. I don't know if they make one where it's got a stove jack and the little bug out. I also don't know why you would do that because, I mean, if you're gonna leave this front end and you open, you can just put a fire on this side or even put your stove outside the tent. Like, you've got options. Anyway. Hey, this is Tyler White with TJX Survival, and I took my kids camping this weekend, and we decided to do a demo of the little bug out shelter from SeekOutside, which I have behind me. Now, I've owned SeekOutside equipment. I've had the 8-man teepee and the tarp and a couple other pieces of equipment, the backpack over here, since like 2014. So for 5-6 years I've had a lot of the SeekOutside equipment, and the main reason that I started looking into it was it's extremely ultralight. It's something that can wad up in a bag that is
it's fluffy, so it can be as fluffy as a sleeping bag, but it can compress down as tight as like a tightly rolled hammock, and it weighs less. Like if I take my hammock, my tarp, an underquilt, and all the hammocks set up, it'll weigh less than the SeekOutside 8-man teepee and the stove, or this little bug out shelter and the stove and all that stuff. So weight was a massive issue. It's fluffy, but it can compress down real tight. So what I can do is I can ram my sleeping bag into the bottom of my rucksack. It's basically sleeping bag, sleeping mat, tent, Gore-Tex top, and then just smash the bag, which is this bag right here, which will have the tent or a teepee inside of it. Smash it down inside to the side of the bag, or if I'm making a blanket pack or some sort of a primitive type of carrying system, I can stick it against my back. Like, there's a lot of options for it because it's just a fluffy, soft sack that you can pretty much smash anywhere. So let's talk about the little bug out. I've got it set up. I've been filming with it. I did a little bit of I got a little footage of the setup with this. It's fairly quick. Let's talk about setup. We'll start there. All right, so on this this tent, when you want to set this thing up, what I'll do is I'll have one of my kids hold this center pole right here. Now, you don't have to do that, but one thing you do really want to do is, as you can see right here, is the this is the little bug out shelter itself. That's the vestibule, and this is the tarp in the middle. So I will just stake down, you know where your zippers are at, okay? So if you know where your zippers are, stake down one zipper, set the pole up for your measurement, and then you can hold the pole up with one hand and stake down the other zipper. And that tells you the width of the teepee, or the little bug out shelter. Now, once you've got that left and right, all you got to do is hit that far stake right over there, and those are your 3 measurements. And then, because I have 3 points in the ground with the stake, with the pole freestanding, then all I've got to do is set the next pole up and make this top tight right here, and then drop the left side, the right side, and the back side. So it's fairly simple to get this whole thing set up. So once you've got it set up, you stake a zipper, set up a pole, stake a zipper, set up the back part. That side's done. Again, set up the pole, stake a zipper, set up the back side, and now the rigidity of the tent is done. All you have to do now is just finish 2 spots per the vestibule, and finish 2 spots for the little bug out shelter. Now, there's a lot of, speaking of stakes, there's a lot of different ways that you can handle this. I have this really cool Council Tools Boys hatchet, and it's not super heavy. It's fairly lightweight. Again, you don't have to carry this, but this is what I like to carry. Some people are going to scream about carrying an ultralight tent and using a hatchet to nail in the stakes. You don't have to do this. You can push in the stakes. You can tie the stakes to rocks with string. There's tons of options. If you don't want to carry anything, just find a rock. Okay, you can hammer those in with a rock. If you do want to carry something, use this. I use this to kind of trim the trees around the area right here last night, because I don't think it's springtime, and I don't think anybody's been here since probably last fall. So it was kind of overgrown, and I just trimmed the edges of everything. So there's multiple purposes for having a small hatchet. One is you've got your hammer. 2 is you've got a cutting tool, and then of course splitting firewood, processing firewood. Now, when you've got a small stove like this, you're going to want to bring a saw. I have this, I think it's a Baca Laplander saw, and you don't have to buy this one. You can go to Lowe's or whatever and just get yourself a under $20 saw. But the value of having a saw is the fact that you can take chunks like this, which would be amazing for the fireplace, and chop in half so it will fit inside of these little titanium stoves. If you can, like, I've burnt all my firewood from last night, but I'll go out and I will just find totally dead. This is scrub oak, so it's really kind of crappy to deal with. It's gnarly and stuff. But if you just smash it all into small pieces until it stops smashing, and then you saw, I can get 3 chunks out of this that would easily fit inside of my stove. Okay, so talking a little bit about this stove. I filmed a video of putting it together last night. They go together pretty quickly. It's kind of a little bit origami to like hold it together, but it's got lips along the ridge here where the pieces will attach, and then it's got a little folded piece on the bottom, so it all kind of holds itself together, and then you just put 1 screw on the top, and once you put this wing nut in, it's locked down pretty solid. I mean, this is it's very lightweight. It's under a pound, or I'm sorry, it might be just barely over a pound. I think the smallest stove is like 18 ounces, so maybe mine's 20-ish. Don't quote me on that. It's really lightweight. It's lighter than a pair of hiking shoes. So, but the value of this, as an example, you can see that it's kind of overcast. It might start to rain again a little bit. It rained hard twice last night, and I was able to keep my 2 little girls who were spending the night here camping with me, and they had little kid sleeping bags that are not very high rating. I just kept throwing chunks of wood in here, and they slept just fine. I slept a little bit too warm, but that's super controllable. The vent right here up top, I can open it from the top down and just dump tons of air out. I can open it from the bottom up. There's vents up here in the corner too. So if you look right up here in the corner, this little guy is removable, and basically there's this piece of flap. Now let me show you how to work this, because it kind of confused me. You see this Velcro thing and you don't know how to deal with it. Well, all you do is just connect the Velcro pieces, which is super smart, and then hold that over, and it gives you a rain protecting cover. But if you want to open it up, you just go like that, and now it can dump extra heat out of there right next to the stove. So last night it started to get a little bit too hot, and I just unzipped this open, and that just completely opens that up and gives you kind of a heat dump. So that's nice. If it's going to overheat, you've got a ton of different ways that you can vent this system, which when compared to the teepee that I've used, it's really nice. Now, as you can see right now, I've got this whole front end of the little bug out shelter open. One really smart idea I saw is just to take this panel right here and then just tie it out that way to the trees, so that it let me put this back. So if you just take it and just tie right over the trees like this, then it becomes a nice big awning. And with that awning, you could sit this in front of like a normal campfire. You don't even need the small stove. You'd be able to just get a lot of radiant heat. Now, I would be a little bit concerned about being too close to a normal campfire, even though this is still nylon and it's resistant to sparks and stuff. You know, there's no material that with enough of a coal sitting there long enough isn't going to burn. So this stove is definitely the best option, but it is an option to sit this in front of a fire and get your heat and have an opening. The other thing too, like, you can't really see too much of it, but this is my view out of the side of my little bug out shelter. Like, it's way down the canyon. It's not super amazing because of the trees there, but the sun rose right here, and it was just all beautiful, you know, looking up until we get the edge of the shelter here. Okay, so the stove, let's talk real quickly about this little stove. It's titanium, so it dissipates heat really fast, which is really nice because it's got these little pull tabs here. This is just a little sheet of metal, and what I'll do when I add fire to it, or add wood to the fire, is I'll slide this out and just drop it on the ground, and the ground being cold is going to make it cool. It's going to cool it off. Then I can mess with any of what I've got going in here. I wonder if I don't have any coals left. Burned a lot of wood last night. Probably burned half a little tree. So add your firewood and do all that you've got to be doing, and then you can just grab this little piece of tin here and then just slide it back in and control it with that, and it's nice because then it doesn't get too hot. There's a flue on the back, which is nice. You can control it right here, and what that's doing is, and what creosote come out of there. It's controlling this guy right here. And the reason that's important is it gives you the ability to, if you put it at this angle, that's full open, and that's just going to just cook your wood fast. But if you tilt it to an angle like this, it slows down the fire. And you'll notice that this part right here of your smoke pipe will stop glowing red because you slowed down your burn, which is good because you want your fire to last for a big duration of time. If you're just cooking this thing really super fast and blasting through all of your wood, then it's too hot in the tent and then it gets cold fast. But if you control your flue and control the rate that it burns, then you know, it's going to be warmer longer. Now, the only negative to a stove like this is that there's not a lot of metal mass. I mean, that's the point with ultralight. You don't want to carry a lot of weight, but when you've got something like this that is ultralight, it heats up and cools down quickly. So if the fire goes out, the heat of the radiant heat, the leftover heat of the stove has gone out too. One way to compensate for that, if you're going to be here for more than a day, is to just stack rocks up around it. Now be very careful not to get wet rocks because they'll blast open, because heat will form steam on the inside and blow them apart. But if you have a dry area where you can put rocks around it, once this has been burning for an hour or so or more, those rocks will retain the heat. And then even after your coals are completely burnt out, those rocks will still dissipate heat for a good duration of time after the fire's out. And that's why you see stoves and hearths with all those rocks, is because the heat absorbs into the rocks, and then you get this secondary radiant heat from the rocks later, even when the fire's burned out, which is a few more hours that you can stay asleep before getting cold if you're really depending on the fire. So if we talk just a little bit about the little bug out shelter, it is a half teepee with a tarp with a vestibule. It can also be a half teepee in a vestibule, or a half teepee in a tarp, or whatever you want to do. So if you decide you want to do one type of configuration, you've got all three pieces, you just don't take the other piece out of the bag, you leave it home, whatever you want to do. If it starts to rain really super hard and smash down on you, you just add that other piece to it and you're good to go. So the cool thing about this is the modularity. Now, the actual LBO itself, and forgive me, I put this, so the place we put it right here was a campsite, and then right here it kind of goes up a hill, so I smashed this in a really tight area. But this is the LBO. You can tell that because it's got a little lip on the side right here, so if you didn't have the awning or any of the other parts, you'd be able to grab this string right here and tie it to the ground, and then that would be just a shelter half for a little bug out shelter. And it's got the cap right here, which goes to the pole,
This guy right here is a vent system that allows, you know, humidity and sweat to leave. That way you don't have nastiness on the inside of the tent. One thing that's really cool is they have these little attachments here, which if you use them to tie to strings on the trees and whatever, will substantially enhance the volume of your shelter by making it way wider. Okay, so you can see right here where it's kind of sagged because the hill is just steep right here. I didn't put this on a flat spot. So if I were to add a string right here, that would make that part of the shelter a lot wider. But, you know, sometimes if you don't need it, you don't need it. Now the awning, or the tarp part here again in the middle, again, I have a low spot here and a high spot here, so I just put some rocks to hold it down. But that's what you get when you don't camp in a flat spot. What I really like is the ability to put the stove jack in the middle or on the side. Because let's think about this. If I had two people, maybe two backpackers or hunters or whatever, I could put one in here, one in there, and the stove in the middle with the fuel in the back. That way you can be super comfortable. Now, realistically, it's going to be tight, but you could put a body here and a body here, and then do the same thing, body and body, and then stove in the middle. I've heard people say you don't want to do more than 2 or 3 people, but we slept in it last night just fine with 3 people, and we had a whole half of the shelter not being used. So if you were to put the stove right in the dead center and put 1 or 2 people on this side, 1 or 2 people on the other side, you would fit snug, but you would fit. And it would be probably about the smallest situation that you would want to do for like the lightest weight tent setup for 4 people, I think. Now, if you do have your, this is light enough you can go 1 person by yourself. So if you do want to go just 1 person, and you can be very comfortable with you and your gear over here, your stove can go right there, and then just a ton of firewood inside. Because it does rain, you don't want to have to be trying to burn wet wood all night long, which is a real pain in the butt. So let's talk about the jacks really quick. These stove jacks are smart. They had old jacks that didn't do this, so I'm fairly impressed with these new jacks. And what they do is they just Velcro right there. The reason that's important is because the old jacks just kind of slopped around, and I had some burn right here on the top, so that was a negative part. But they fixed that, which is great. So this part touches here, which leaves kind of like a bubble cushion of this non-burning material. So only the anti-flammable stove jack touches the stove. And as you can see from the discoloration of the titanium, there's some heat that can blast out of that thing. So, and then of course when you're not using it, you just unroll it and Velcro right there, and it just locks it down so it's waterproof.
All right, guys and girls, that's the little bug out shelter from SeekOutside. I think it's a phenomenal choice for an ultralight backpacking tent. It's a hot tent, which is nice, so you can go in the winter with it, you can go in the summer with it, you can take your kids with not winter appropriate clothes and they're not gonna freeze to death. So it's a really good setup. If you have any questions about this, leave it down in the comment section below. And you're gonna see this in the future videos with me. You're gonna see this for sure, largely because I'm gonna go camping with the Munchkins more often. Say bye.
Bye.
Munchkin and Dora the Explorer there.
Hi, take your bottle. So heavy that I can hardly walk.
So heavy you can hardly walk?
Yeah. Well, it's probably not as heavy as my
Come on, Dora the Explorer. Where's your Dora hat?
Here it is. Dora the Explorer. Now we're going home to see Daddy and Mommy and Alex Tidy. And you can see Bunny and Blanky. I got my Bunny and Blanky in my pack. Don't have a bunny. That's good. That's funny about it. That's all paintbrush.
What's that?
I can wipe my butt.
A sagebrush. What do you do with it?
You can smell it. You can wipe your butt.
What'd you say, Holly?
You can wipe your butt.
With what?
Sagebrush.
Yeah, what else can you do with it?
Smell it.
Smell it?
Smell
What else can you do with it? Wash your hands.
Hey,
Okay, let's go.
I want some to smell. Huh? Is that cool?
Let's
Let
go.
them come through. Let them come through.